All righty. Well, this is my first chip on our Leaders Who Care series, and I love potato chips. So, welcome to our Leaders Who Care series, Chip.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I love what you're doing. You got a great mission.
Well, flattery will get you everywhere, so keep it coming. And if you could best start, and I always have to put an asterisk on this with men especially. If you could briefly introduce yourself, not what you do or your business or anything, but what's your whole name? Where are you from originally? Where you are now? A little bit, as much as you feel comfortable, but your family, stuff like that.
Well, I'm Charles Whitney Webster Jr., and my mom said if you want a junior, he can't be a Charlie or a Chuck. So they came up with Chip. So I've been a chip off the old block, and I don't even relate to the other name. I write under the name Chip. Um, I grew up in Southern California till I was a senior in high school and moved out, but I was in Burbank, Ventura, Fullerton, and Palm Springs, and was a lousy student. It turns out I'm dyslexic and ADD. I have to be one of the few kids that got kicked out of the first grade class permanently. My dad was principal of the junior high, which is a whole other story, and they got me in another class. But Mrs. Tuttle and I did not get along. I think it's part of my personality. I just don't tolerate people pushing me around. I don't know, but
And what grade was that?
first Washington School in Ventura. And I thought I was a pretty nice guy, but she didn't. And then, being dyslexic and having a father who's, educator and sisters who were all academic scholars, I was kind of the in remedial reading every year and just trying to make my way through. And when I started working a little bit, even in elementary school, we had several avocado trees, so I'd sell avocados and rhubarb and artichokes. And I even had our window washer in Ventura gave me his business cards and said, go around the neighborhood and hand out my business cards. And I was like several miles in each direction. So started working early. Then we moved to Fullerton for my sixth grade. And that was the only place I was before then that my dad wasn't principal of the next school, but his best friend was assistant superintendent. So I still was a marked man, but I was going out for Pee Wee football, and my dad said, I said, I need cleats, Dad. He said, fine, go get a job. So I watered lawns and pulled weeds, and they're probably $7.99 in those days. So, but at a quarter an hour, it takes a while.
Yeah,
Uh,
I remember.
and, and then moved to Palm Springs and started gardening and watering palm trees, pulling weeds, and
Do you
went
have
out.
brothers and sisters?
I have two older sisters. Both of them end up being teachers, and they're all gone. I'm an orphan. Lost my parents, lost my sisters at a very young age.
Well,
But I had an interesting family that my dad was extraordinarily disciplined, and I learned discipline. But he had lived in an age and in a family that didn't know how to express love. And I know he loved us all, but because he'd go to the rail for us, go to the mat for us. But it was an interesting dynamic. I was lucky he did. He gave me a work ethic that has probably been the most important part of my behavior. In Palm Springs, I went out for the football team. I was 6'2", 147 pounds. So I was a real threat. And between my junior and senior year, I decided I wanted to start. So I was working downtown in Palm Springs at a clothing store, and I went and bought a set of weights and um, got myself up to 182. I was ready to play. And 2 weeks before my senior year, my dad said, we're moving to Chicago. And being from California, I said, where's that? There's nothing east of the mountains.
oh, geez.
But I had a lot of jobs there. I caddied. Probably the most significant job I had, besides washing the floors at Winchell's Donut House, was working in a clothing store. It was the first time I really felt like I was appreciated as a worker. I mean, people were always calling me to come to work for them because I had that reputation. But it was the first time I really felt like I was adding value to the total organization. Had a great guy that owned the store. Um, And then here I am off to Lake Forest, Illinois. Knew nobody. Another place where my dad was not the principal. Oh, by the way, my dad was principal of the high school when we moved to Palm Springs. So, um,
It's interesting. I usually ask people about that when they were like as a kid and whatnot, where you said discipline and you said, you know, not a lot of expression of love. And I had the same thing too, but except I knew there was love, but it wasn't expressed as much.
right.
And yet it seems like your whole family were a service, lead by service type of family, though, teaching and all that.
And always engaged with community, Kiwanis and Rotary and all those things, which was a good role model for me going forward. And I guess another gift he gave me was he was principal of Palm Springs High School, and the school board wanted him to. We had movie stars kids, and we had the kids that were broke. It was a very small high school, 1,000 kids, but the whole array of wealth from zero to a lot. And the school board kind of wanted him to kind of give the rich kids a little bit of a break, and he told them go to hell,
Good for
quit,
him.
and ended up running the cable in Palm Springs, which in Palm Springs you have to have cable because of the mountain. So he had a good job, but then Ambassador Kemper of Kemper Insurance knew him as a principal because he used to give scholarships to Kemper Foundation. And finally, Ambassador Kemper talked him into running the foundation, and that's how we ended up in Chicago. And he loved it because he
That's
loved
awesome.
working with schools and kids.
That's awesome. Um, you ended up going to Drake for college, right? I believe.
Right.
And in administration, how come you didn't go the same route with education? And what were you envisioning for yourself overall at that point?
Well, I had gotten to work in retail, and then I went to junior college for a year. It was Vietnam was going on. This is 1964. My, I was I was just a terrible student. I mean, in fact, the counselor said I shouldn't go to college, and so
Well,
maybe I should get a job.
motivation all the way.
Oh yeah, yeah. They didn't know me very well. So my dad said, you have a choice. You can go in the Marines, or you can live at home, but you have to pay for your education, and you can go to school as long as you're working. So my first year in school was at Kendall College, which was a private school on the Northwestern campus. And I worked at Robertson's clothing store 6 days a week, and went to school and got good enough grades to get into Drake. So I knew I loved retail. Drake had a co-op program. Of course, my dad knew all these different schools. He was a USC grad. I still don't really forgive him for not getting him into USC because he
Mm.
could have, but I have had a great life. The thing I love about Drake was that we had a co-op program. So I could work at Sears, get credit, and go to class. And I retailed in retail management, or majored that. And then so I were my priorities: Sears, my fraternity, SAE, Drake basketball. We were in the final four my senior year, and then going to class. So my whole objective at Drake was just get out of here, get me out of here. And I was really lucky. My between my junior and senior year, I was working at Sears and Waukegan, and the store manager there was very influential with the whole organization. He trained the current president, CEO of Sears, and I was running his outdoor living department. And he came out one day and said, "How would you like to go on the MBA program?" Well, I don't have an MBA. No, I'm going to put you on the summer MBA program in the headquarters. And great experience. Except I went back to college for my senior year, already having a job. So, but I managed to get out.
That's I always find it interesting what we've done as kids, how there's generally some kind of thread, obviously, of who we are because it's very malleable. We're very malleable at that point, and by who we meet, how big a difference it could be for people. And one thing I find, not to go ahead of the game here, but especially with men, how many men I've interviewed in what we do with talent that will tell me their confidence is based on when their coach put them on the field for one really important time in the game. And they don't even tell me if they scored or this or that. They just keep remembering he believed in me and put me on the field at that time. And it was incredible. And, there's an expression, you only need one person to believe in you. type of thing. And which is why I laughed when they were telling you don't go to college.
Yeah, right,
That's supposed to be the opposite.
right.
But maybe they're like Simon Cowell. You can't sing, so don't keep going this direction. I'm
Well,
not.
for sure, I wasn't going to be an academic.
Well, there's a lot of very successful people that didn't go to college. I can guarantee you that. And um, can you share some of your experiences along in your journey before we get to the executive work you did? Were there any experiences, any inflection points, if you will, that stand out, and what impact they had on where you were going in the future?
Are you talking about pre-Sears or pre-management trainee or right about that? Just
Yeah,
give me the,
yeah. Before you got into like real management stuff.
okay. All right. So two experiences. One, the summer I was running the outdoor living department. Being a college kid running a department was pretty cool. And I don't know, intuitively, the guy who worked part-time and kept it going when I wasn't there was a Navy chief. So it was a part-time job for him. And I just somehow thought he knows more than I do. So I,
Really?
I listened and asked lots of questions. Fast forward a year and later, I'm now out of college and an official management trainee and now running a department. I was running the boys department, and then I ended up actually running the men's too because the guy who was running that got sick. So I was running the biggest department, the newest kid on the block, and I'm running around. I've got all these people working for me, and these two Navy chiefs' wives. I mean, these are people who've been around. They called me over and said, Chip, if you said please and thank you, you'd probably get a lot more done. It was like, and what a gift! What a gift! I've never forgotten it. So
Yeah,
that
that's
helped me. And then I just realized I'm only as good as my team. And the way I treat my team is the way they're going to treat the customers. So, it's all about people. When I was doing some consulting, the name of my company was Strategic Advantage, and the tagline was the only sustainable strategic advantage is people, period. And I believe that today also in technology.
yeah.
At the end of the day, people.
Yeah, there's no doubt. By the way, I worked at the Hudson's Bay Company during college in the men's
Okay.
department, and
Yeah,
started in the stockroom in the men's department. And we'll talk about influencers later, but sometimes it's only a minute like that. You should just say please or thank you that hits home at the right time. And if we're smart enough to like not just ignore it, but actually just
right,
even give it 10 seconds of thought so it actually does hit home, it could be priceless for the whole future. Just like the executive that tells me he got his confidence from the coach when he was 10 years old.
right, right. And my confidence was I was given assignments in Sears, both in Des Moines and Waukegan, that normally you wouldn't give to a college kid because I guess I worked hard and they thought I knew what I was doing. And that gave me, oh, that's why I wanted to be president of Sears. It's like, this is my, this is my home. This is my family. I'm going to stay here and retire.
I would call those ladies and even the men that you talk to that they're also leaders who care. Leaders don't always have to be heads of corporates or this or that. You can just be leaders who care about people and about making things better. And everybody can be a leader who cares.
I like that. I like that. It takes a village.
It does, and we need a big village right now.
Yeah, we
Um,
do.
um, I was intrigued by, well, our firm, Fifth Element, was launched on the premise of it's about talent and leadership and impact, and that leaders who care can always do better in their business and life when they do good at the same time. You would never understand that. And and what was your vision, your mission, your thinking when you started an independent phone book company? Because we look back now, and when you don't know what you don't know for the future, the
Right,
phone book was the phone book.
right. I had just, done some corporate things, got recruited away from Sears and was kind of but I knew I wanted to be entrepreneurial. And some friends of mine were doing the phone book business in North Carolina and South Carolina. And they said, if you open up Georgia, we'll give you a third of the company. And, you know, so I had my, I didn't have my first kid yet. So, but my wife was pregnant. We just moved from Thousand Oaks to Atlanta. So, and then started from scratch. I had no money, but I, so my first goal was we got to make money. Um, and then what I didn't know at that when I first started is the phone book was the most used reference book, period.
Hmm.
You didn't do anything without the phone book. And once I got into it, I realized how much influence we could have in a market. So we would go to a market where there were like four phone books by the telco, these little tiny skinny ones, and we'd consolidate that. But not only would we do that, the cover was always a local college or local statue or something. And we always put local sports in. I mean, we really made it a community book. We made the print so you could read it, made it larger. So that was giving back to the community. And then while I was doing that, I got involved with the chambers in the three markets I was producing in, and I did talk to some college classes I was asked to talk to about business, and then I did a thing called Adopt a School through the chamber, where I would go in and sit in class, and they'd promote or they'd give a business plan, and I'd critique it and we'd talk about business. So yeah, that was it's all integrated.
And you know what else the phone book was used a lot for? Was for to put so little kids can sit on it to be higher at the table.
And it was a real bummer if you lived in Ventura compared to New York.
Exactly. Size does matter, right? So yeah, it's to me it's fascinating. It's not that long ago, relatively speaking, that we had phone books and how
Right.
technology has just gone. And you look back and you're thinking, oh my God, we looked through the phone book like that and everything. But fascinating and really important to see the progression and how things happen and how you manage and you do stuff with what you got.
Right. You adapt.
Yeah. What a crazy concept.
Yeah. I guess the one thing I miss about the phone book the most is you could go to a market and open up the phone book and look for people you knew. Whereas sometimes not everybody's on the internet. Not everybody has a Facebook. Not everybody, so I
Yeah.
miss that ability.
Well, you'll get over it. Um,
Yet when?
Did you find, like I love the fact you said you put colleges on the front and sports and whatnot. Did you find that there was, like now we talk about making an economic and social impact at the same time? That's what Leaders Who Care really do. They do both. You have to make money and make a social impact. They come together. Um, there was kind of that thought process back then, but it was more about you should be doing something for the community, right?
Right. Right. Absolutely. Like I said, I got involved with the community. That was my part. And the book gave information that they otherwise wouldn't get through the regular telco phone book. And we became the number one used phone book in all those markets. We'd have the local college do a survey because the print was bigger, they could see. I mean, that's just having a phone book you could see. The print was
I
to
do
me was
remember some of them that it's like, oh my God.
even as a 30-year-old, I couldn't. It's like,
I can just see the 25-year-olds listening to this right now, and they're saying, "What are those guys talking about?"
have they fallen asleep yet?
Yeah, no, this is. Let me tell you guys listening, this is pretty cool. It's an evolution of where we are right now. So speaking of evolution, then, because this isn't a feature film, we've got so much time to do this.
Right.
Um, the fourth industrial revolution, people have said, is AI technology without a doubt. The question is the fifth industrial revolution about humanity? And because tech's supposed to work for us and support us, etc., not us work for it. And don't have to get into a whole AI discussion right this second, but I think that can happen if it's done properly. But share about and there's something very human about your transition to be the president of Vistage, Florida, um, in what you're doing and how you're impacting people. Can you share a little bit about why and how that happened and what it was about?
Sure. Sure. Happy to. We'll talk about influencers later,
Yep.
but a big part of that, we'll touch on that part of it. But when I was in the direct selling business, phone books, I also sold vending machines. I mean, I did a lot of direct selling. I realized my job was to help people do better. And I can remember sitting in Thousand Oaks looking out at the 101 about 4 in the morning. I'm a night person, just thinking about what's the meaning of life. And I said, I came up with my personal mission statement, and it was to make a difference and to help others see their potential. And it took another 4 years, I guess 5 years, before I was recruited to be a tech chair or Vistage chair now. They changed names, and I found my calling. It was like all these roads I had to go down and all the risks I had to take. I found my calling, and it was, when you spend 2 hours a month with the same person having deep conversations and then facilitate an all-day meeting where they help each other, you really get to know people. And I can tell you story after story of people whose businesses we saved, who were able to do more because of that process. And it goes back to what you're talking about, the human need. We need we need each other. And I believe that we become the average of the 10 people we hang out with, period. And being able to be in that arena and getting paid there were days I thought, I can't believe I get paid to do this. There were other days where I thought, you're not paying me much, but mostly it was just, I love the work. I was doing what I love to do. It's why I'm here.
Right.
And
No,
then I got recognized nationally as a outstanding chair. And the guy who bought it asked me to run it. And then I got to invest in it. And what I was about was finding people who could run the groups, who had that same spirit of wanting to give back and helping them find members. And I was very successful at it. And we used to say we're doing well by doing good.
100%. Yeah. And the great thing about it is it's the heart and soul, not to sound like they should be the national anthem being played behind me now. It's the heart and soul of America, the businesses that you're working with.
Yeah, right. Nothing happens till somebody sells something. Period.
Yeah, and well, a lot happens. They're building up their business.
Right.
They're making
Right.
stuff happen. Their money's flowing, everything.
Yeah. I mean, I'm having a hard time with people who will like other political structures. We won't get too deep into that, but when you look at the history of man and how many people were able to be blessed by the economy, we are far and away the best example.
Yep.
And
And
it's
for
because of
opportunity too.
an exchange of value. I understand if I help you build your business, I'm going to get rewarded for that. And if you serve your customers, they're going to reward you for that.
Yeah, 100% in all sorts of ways, financial and
Yeah,
otherwise, type of
right.
thing.
Right.
So so what's ahead for you? You founded Unity in Service, which is, I find, very much what you've been doing, just different, type of thing. And what's ahead for you in the short to long term? As you look to bring unity, and God knows that we need it, big time. And are you drawing from your experiences and history, and how are the challenges and opportunities of like AI and technology affecting that?
We're a startup. I wrote the book, um, which my 11th grade English teacher is now spinning in her grave thinking I wrote anything. Um,
But she can't
and
grade you right now.
that's right. Thank God, because I'd be a D again. Uh, the the whole it's a passion mission. I'm involved with three nonprofits: Tampa Bay Watch, Keepers of the Flame, which is for Vistage chairs from around the world, and Unity and Service. And that Unity and Service came from my observing where we were as a country. Um, Culture eats strategy every time. Whether you think you have a culture or don't think you have a culture, you have a culture.
Right.
And our culture right now is dysfunctional. We've become the United States of America. I've got four grandkids that are very young, and I want them to be able to live in a free nation where everybody has an opportunity. And you're either getting better or worse. There's no holding ground. Anybody who says, I'm just, well, you've done it in a business. Well, let's break even. No, breaking even means you're going to lose. So I just decided to dedicate this part of my life to gathering together people who are moderate liberal, moderate conservative, centrists who put country ahead of party. And we're early on in the game. I've got some people that are helping me, but it's creating a movement of people understanding what their role is as a responsible citizen. Getting part of that is getting involved in volunteering, getting out of, turning off the TV and go outside and work with Habitat for Humanity or go help some kids learn how to read. Uh, and the other part, pardon me, is that you probably know this, but there's over 60 countries in the world that have required military service. I'm not asking for that. I'm asking for you turn 18 and you serve the country for a year. The Civilian Conservation Corps was very successful in the Depression, building dams, roads, really built a lot of the national parks. We need to have some sweat equity in this country. I think there's a lot of people who think they're renting the country. And as you well know, democracy is a do it to ourselves project. Um, when COVID came, I stopped working. My wife stopped working because she's immunocompromised and couldn't travel anymore. And we bought a motorhome. We did 5 loops of the U.S. I mean, from Seattle to
I
San
love it.
Diego to Philadelphia to Florida and in between. And I'd be someplace and talk to people, and they'd be complaining about the country, and I'd say, "Well, it's our fault." And well, we elected them. I look at the United States as like a big public company, and we're all stockholders. And we have one vote, and that's called equity. And I'm just trying to get people to understand it's our country, and it's either going to get better or worse based on what each of us as an individual do. Only 66% of the people vote for the president. Every 2 years, about 45% vote for the House that is really running our country. And in local elections, it's 20% on a good day. So we got to get off our derrieres and get out and participate.
Yeah, amen. And you know what? When you do, you feel good,
Yeah,
basically. And so there is an ROI. It's not just you're doing somebody a favor, you're really doing yourself a favor, not to mention the country on top of that. But if you're thinking about yourself initially, it's so fulfilling. I mean, I was in Canada. I was in the militia for a while. They called it the militia, but I was in the communications squadron. We learned how to shoot and all that, and take apart guns and everything. But we learned first aid. We learned maps. We learned communications. We learned so many things.
right.
John Ambulance, first aid. I mean, and it's an experience. It's an experience, and you're learning it with other team people. And in a way, it's also like sports. Get involved in a sports team, and learn what you can from that, because there's plenty to learn.
Yeah, it breaks down barriers. I will guarantee you this. I won't live long enough to see it. If we had that program within one generation, 20 years, we would be a healthier country. We would learn how to compromise. Also, we would have less garbage on the road. Uh, it would just be a healthier place. I would guess less crime, less mental issues. One of my sad, being a Californian and second generation California, I love California. But we're driving through California, stop at a rest stop, and $1,000 fine for littering, and literally a pile of garbage around it. It's just it's
You remind me of a conversation I just had with my cousin up in Toronto. We used to sit in back of the station wagon, no seatbelts or whatever, looking at
right,
the cars behind us and waving and this and that and the other. And we
right,
remembered when we'd see somebody throw something out the window, and excuse me, even as little kids, 5 to 10 year olds, we
yeah,
looked at each other and we said, where do they expect that to go?
right.
Like it was crazy. And I don't know if people don't think or whatever, but I agree, that we need, even if it's for self-serving purposes, people will feel better if they do join something, whether it's the military or something, the Peace Corps or something, something that makes a difference.
I think, the reason that villages, tribes started was because we needed to help each other to survive. But you
Hmm.
had a sense of being part of something bigger than yourself. When you volunteer, like our volunteers at Tampa Bay Watch who come and plant seagrass and plant oyster reef balls, and
Hmm.
it's they're being part of something bigger than themselves. And we all, we need each other. And I think it just emphasizes uh, our interconnectedness as human beings. And that's what we're missing. We're going to talk about mental health later. I think that's one of the big things that's missing. People feel isolated and they can't
100%.
connect the dots about how to feel good about themselves.
Yeah, 100%. And well, not sounding cute, but we talk about this a lot. Leaders who care are actually everywhere. And to be a leader who cares, it could mean just cleaning up the beach. It doesn't have to mean saving the world. It could mean helping an old lady cross the street and everything
Yeah.
in between. And the ROI, what I call it, return on that investment of doing it is spectacular. In different ways that you don't even know about the energy that's created by it and things that happen.
Right. Well, in my book, I talk about breaking down barriers and seeing the humanness in others. And that's,
It's a big deal,
if
by the way.
if you want to do something based on this conversation, when you walk out of the your house, open the door for somebody and say hello.
Hmm.
Wave somebody into the traffic so that they can get home to see the Dodgers win again. Or, uh, just ask a person, a clerk, how are you doing?
Absolutely.
Acknowledge their humanness. Just smile. And I don't know if I shared this when we talked earlier. When I was traveling around the country, I'd go to like Chula Vista, where we spent a lot of time, and I'd be out walking along the bay and trying to engage people. And if you finally did and you said hi to somebody, they'd light up like a Christmas tree. But most people have their earbuds in and they're literally looking the other way so they don't have to engage. That means they don't know how to engage. But we need to be acknowledged. We're all part of this tribe, the human race, and we need to acknowledge our need for each other and acknowledge each other's value.
Yeah, and that's something really lacking right now. We have to look at the humanity, the good in a person as the first thing we think about that person, not
Right.
stereotyping by all types of categories what they may be, but look for the good first. And there will be bad, evil people, whatever at times, but most people, if you find the good first, think good things happen. So I have one last question because in LA we say keep them wanting more so we can do a sequel. I always say
All
that.
right.
And so after the pandemic in the year 2021, a client of mine said, the year 2020, it flew by slowly, he told me. And it really hit home because even today, so many people feel like it was yesterday and also years ago at the same time,
Mhm.
the whole thing. With all that and where we are now, can you share with us what you're most grateful for and also what you're most hopeful for?
Well, I'm most grateful beyond my family, but I'm most grateful to be born in the United States of America, or in your case, North America, two great countries. And I'm hopeful that we can start a national conversation about our need for each other and our commitment to making it better every day. So it's hopeful that we can have a conversation and get people to stop dividing us. Right now the press, the politicians get all their energy from dividing us, and
And
it's gotten
technology
worse.
and the
E-
technology confirms.
Exactly, which I consider driven in that way. So yeah, if we can just start having a real national conversation. I think it was John Kennedy said, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. That's democracy. It's back to it's a do-it-ourselves project, and we have the government we deserve, period.
So is
So
that what you're
to
most
make it
hopeful for?
positive is the positive end is that we work together.
So that's what you're hopeful for, and
Yeah.
so am I. Well, I tell you what, I'm grateful for a new friend, that's for sure. So thank you for that, and I'm also grateful and hopeful for the same thing that you are a leader who cares, and that and you're making a difference, and don't stop because that as they say, love will conquer, no doubt about it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
keep the faith, brother, and thanks for being on the Leaders Who Care series.
Thanks so much, Mark. Really appreciate it.